Hello, welcome to Lab 6. Today we're going to be doing some DNS. Before we get started on DNS, though, we need to configure our computer so that it's functional for the lab. And to begin with, what we're going to do is we're going to remove DHCP from this computer. We might add it later back on, but for now, we're just going to go ahead and remove it. So to start, let's go ahead and open up our server manager. Obviously, power on your Windows Server 2019 and log in. But once you're logged in, we can open up Server Manager. And once Server Manager is open, we're going to click on Manage, and we're going to remove roles and features this time. And we'll click Next and Next, and we just need to uninstall DHCP. Click Next and remove. Pretty simple of a process. But that'll get it so that we can configure our server back so that it has the ability to access the internet, which is what we want to do prior to working with our DNS, so that we know that our computer is functioning the way that it needs to function. And this process might take a little while, but it really shouldn't. It's just removing DHCP. Mine's done. It does tell me that I need to do a reboot, so that's what I'll do. Restart. And then once it's restarted, we can go ahead and log back in, and we can start on our actual lab. Of course, we'll still have to change a couple things in our VMware settings, but nothing too big. So we can open our server. Oops. And what we want to do is we want to come over here and right click on our server and go to settings. And we're going to change our network adapter from whatever it is. It might be custom VNet 1, it might be host only, but we're going to change it from whatever it is to NAT and hit OK. And now we're going to open our internet settings and go to change adapter options. And we'll click on our network adapter and click on properties, open up TCP/IPv4. And we're going to change so that we can obtain an IP address automatically. Hit OK. And now we can do a command prompt and an IP config. And we can see that we have a different IP address, which is 192.168.174.129. Yours is obviously going to be different. And we have a default gateway, and we should be able to access the internet, even though we're on a server. There we go, we have internet. Now, the reason that we've done this is because we want to make sure that the things that we're about to do in this lab aren't affected by network connectivity. We want to see that we have internet, which we do. So first thing we want to do is we want to come back into our network and internet settings, change our adapter options, right click on properties, come to TCP/IPv4, and we're going to use specific DNS server addresses. And we're going to use 8.8.8.8 and 8.8.8, or sorry, 8.8.4.4. Hit OK. Close. We can close out all this. And let's just go to a couple different websites. So we'll go to Google again. And we'll go to Yahoo. Oops. Let's go to HBO. And let's do one more. Let's do Amazon.com. Okay, so we've gone to a couple of websites, and the reason that we've done this is because we want to be able to see that our computer has some DNS records. So we're going to go into our command prompt again. We'll right click on this and run as administrator. And I want to do an IP config space / display DNS. Oh, DNS, not Dan. There we go. Why isn't that working? IP config space / There we go. Jeez. Okay, whole bunch of stuff came through here. So let's just scroll up and take a look at what it is that we have. Whole bunch of stuff. There we go. All right. So you can see all of the different DNS records that we have. We have our Amazon Trust, HBO. HBO's got a bunch of different records there. OCSP, whatever this is. Cloudflare, Amazon Trust, Amazon, whole bunch of Yahoo, whole bunch of different stuff in our DNS. Again, Amazon Trust. Then we got Microsoft, Yahoo, just all kinds of stuff. So let's go ahead and scroll back down to the bottom here. And what we want to do now is we want to flush our DNS. ipconfig space / flush DNS. Okay, so now that we flushed it, let's do a display again. And notice that it says that it can't display any DNS resolver cache. Okay, cool, not a problem. But why couldn't it display the resolver cache? That's a good question. Maybe you guys should answer that. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to look at something else called a hosts file. So we are going to go to our C:\/ Windows. Actually, sorry. We're going to go to C:\/ Windows Notepad space C:\/ Windows /system32 /drivers /etc /hosts. Oh, got a little mistake here. There we go. So what this will do is it will open in Notepad this file called hosts, which is located in C Windows System32 drivers etc. And this file is basically the predecessor to DNS. And what it does is it allows you to put in an IP address and then tell the IP address what the name is, the name resolution that you would type in instead of the IP address. So for instance, if you wanted to go to Google and Google's IP address was 1.2.3.4, you would come in here and at the bottom, you would create a new line, 1.2.3.4, and then hit tab and type in google.com. And if I was to save this, it would save the file, and if I tried to go to Google, it would go to the IP address of 1.2.3.4. And to prove this, let's actually put in an IP address that's somewhat useful. So let's do a ping command for yahoo.com. The reason that we did this ping command is so that we can get the IP address for Yahoo, which is 74.6.231.20. So in our notepad file here, we're going to type in that IP address here. 74.6.231.20. So now if I come up here and hit File, Save, and I minimize this, if I open up Internet Explorer and I type in google.com, notice that it says Yahoo up here, not Google. And it also shows that there's some issues here. So if I come back to my host file and I delete this, and I hit File, Save, it still goes to this problem. Now, why is that? Maybe you can answer that for us. So let's do an ipconfig flush DNS, and let's try it again. And there we go. Now we're on Google. So you can see that even without DNS functioning, there is still a possibility without a DNS server to access different websites as long as you're using your host file. And even though we're using a DNS server, we're using the Google DNS servers, we still end up getting a DNS cache on our computer, which is this right here. So another interesting tool that you want to keep in mind is the NS lookup tool. And the NS lookup tool is a tool or a command that's used to quickly find an IP address associated with a specific host or domain name. So instead of pinging Google like we did before, we could do an NS lookup, and it tells us where the information came from, so the DNS server of Google, and then it tells us what the IP or what the name is that we looked up, and then it tells us all of the IP addresses associated with that. Now notice that it's not just a single IP address. There's quite a few IP addresses there, and that's because Yahoo uses quite a few IP addresses so that people can have access. And if we did an NS lookup of HBO.com, quite a few less, but still multiple IP addresses associated with that, right? So what other commands should we take a look at? Well, how about the ARP command? Now, ARP has a purpose. Its purpose is to resolve an IP address to a MAC address. So ARP's a little bit like DNS, but it's more towards the physical and logical address as opposed to the domain name and logical address. But if we did an ipconfig space all, and we noted our DNS server, we could do an ARP -D and an ipconfig /DNS. Did I do it wrong again? No, there's no space. And then we can do an ARP -A, which only shows us our physical address, and a ipconfig display DNS, which doesn't display anything. But if we were to ping google.public.dns, sorry, not google.public, google-public-dns -a dot google.com period. We get our ping, and if we do an ARP -A, notice that we have quite a few more addresses here. And if we do a ipconfig /display DNS, oops, notice that we only have the one DNS record there. So why is it that the entry in our ARP table that we just listed is the router's IP address, or sorry, the router's MAC address, and not the actual server that we pinged? And why is the DNS cache the server that we pinged versus the router's IP address? So explain both of those to us, and we can move on to the next aspect, which is to close out of this and give ourselves a static IP address again. So we can get rid of this. And our IP address that we want should be 192.168.80.10. For some reason, my numlock isn't on again. Why is this not on? 192.168.80.10. There we go. And we're going to make ourselves our preferred DNS server, because we're going to install DNS here shortly. Now that we've done that, let's come back in here to properties. And click on TCP/IPv4 properties. We're going to click on advanced, and we're going to click on DNS, and we want to append a DNS suffix. So we're going to go ahead and call this DNS suffix whatever our last name is. So mine is going to be kid.com, and yours would be, whatever yours is. And we'll hit OK. And we'll hit OK. Close out of all of this. Now let's come up here and click on our Windows icon and click System. And we want to go to System Info. And we want to click on Change Settings. And we're going to click on Change. Nope, sorry, we're not going to click on Change. We actually want to click on More, but I don't see More. Sorry, we are going to click on Change. We're going to click on More. And again, we're going to put in our primary DNS suffix here, which is going to be our last name. And we will hit OK. It's going to ask us to reboot, and that's fine. And now when it's done rebooting, we will go back into our command prompt after we log in. And we will type in ipconfig/all. And notice now that we have a primary DNS suffix, and we have a connection-specific DNS suffix on the Ethernet adapter as well. So now let's go ahead and install DNS service. So inside of our server manager, which should have popped up automatically, but if it didn't, go ahead and open that. We'll click on Manage, Add a Role. We'll click Next. This is a role-based or feature-based install, so we'll click Next. This is our server. Notice how our server name has changed too. It's now server2019.kid.com. We'll click Next, and we're going to click on DNS. Add the features, click Next. We don't have to worry about any extra features, and click Next all the way through this to install. And then once that is done installing and it says installation has succeeded, we'll hit close. And we're going to add one more service, one more role. So we're going to go back into Manage, Add Roles and Features, click Next through, and we actually want to install the web server IIS role as well. Click Next all the way through all of that and hit Install. Now, while this is installing, let's go over to our Windows 10 Pro computer, and let's give it an IP address that is connecting to the same network as our Windows server. So we'll come down here and click on change adapter options. We'll right click on our Ethernet 0 and click properties. Click on TCP IPv4, click properties. And this one's IP address will be 192.168.100, or sorry, 80.100. And the preferred DNS server will be 192.168.80.10. And hit OK. And close out of that. Close out of that. So if we go back over to our web server, or sorry, to our Windows server, we can see that the installation is done. So we can hit close. And we can close out of this. And let's just quickly go over to our Windows 10 computer again, open up our command prompt. And let's see if we can ping 192.168.80.10. And we're not able to. And this is because our Windows Server and our Windows 10 computers are not on the same network adapters. So let's go back to Windows 10 Pro on the side here and click on Settings. This is on Custom VNet 1, so we'll hit OK. And we'll come back to our Windows Server and click on Settings. And we'll change this one over to Custom VNet 1 as well, so that they're on the same network. The server doesn't need to be on the NAT anymore because we're not trying to access the internet. So we ping it again, and look, there we go. We have internet connection. So now let's open up our Microsoft Edge. And we can start without data and click on don't allow, confirm, continue. Yeah. Get rid of all this crap. And we can type in 192.168.80.10 into our browser and notice that we have a web server that we're connecting to. Now, what if we typed in server 2019? Because that's what we named it. So we typed in 2019. Our last name. Looks like it's showing the same thing. And it looks like, nope, can't reach that. So why can't it reach it? We installed DNS, right? Why can't we reach server2019.kid.com? Well, the reason's pretty simple. It's because we haven't actually set up our DNS. So let's close out of this and go back to our Windows server and let's open up DNS. So inside DNS, we see our server 2019. We can click on this and we see that we have a forward lookup zone area, but there's nothing in here. So what we actually have to do is we have to click on this and click right click and say new zone. So we're going to go ahead and click next, and we're going to create our primary zone and click next. And the zone name can be your last name, .com. And it asks if we want to create the file with that name. That's fine. And we want to allow both non-secure and secure dynamic updates. Click next and click finish. So now we have ourselves a primary zone. And now we have server 2019, which has an A record. And we should now be able to come back over here and type in 2019.com, the name of the server, and it should take us, and it does, to our Windows server. Now notice that we're typing in server2019.kid.com and not www.kid.com. Why is that? Why do we have to type in the server 2019 and not www? Okay, so now that we have a functioning DNS server, we want to, on our client computer, open up our command prompt. Actually, we want to open up our command prompt as an administrator. And we want to do an IP config /register, register, DNS. When we hit enter, it lets us know that it was able to register. And now if we click on our Windows server and we refresh, come on, reload. Refresh. Well, we should have an A record here, but it's taking a little bit of time apparently. So let's try again. ipconfig /register DNS. And let's refresh again. Still not happening. Notice that it does say it takes up to 15 minutes. So we'll give this a little bit of time and see if it will register the DNS. And to save time, because it still hasn't registered, what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and create an A record. And to do that, what we can do is we'll right click in this space, create a new host record, new A record, and we'll click on our Windows 10 Pro computer real quick to find out what the host name is. And our host name is desktop, blah, 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 blah. So we'll type that in. L4LDG. L4LDG. And the IP address, we'll do an IP config 192.168.80.100. And we'll click add host. And it says it was created successfully, so we can hit done. And now we have this host name as well. Register DNS should have taken care of this, and it would have if we would have waited the 15 minutes or so, but I'm really not that keen to doing so. So let's go ahead and click on our reverse lookup zone, create a new zone, click next, primary zone again, click next, IPv4, click next, and our network ID is 192.168.80. Notice we don't put anything else in because this is just the network, not the host name. Click next, allow both secure and non-secure. Click next and click finish. And now we have our forward lookup zone and our reverse lookup zone. Now notice that there are no records other than the name server and the start of authority in our reverse lookup zone. If we were to create a new record up here, a new A record, it would ask us if we wanted to create a pointer record, which would be the record that would go in our reverse lookup zone to associate with the A record. However, if we wanted to, we can click on the server 2019 here and click properties, and we can click on this update associated pointer record and hit apply. And now again, it would take 15 minutes, but you would have a pointer record as well. Let's see if we can do, there we go, refresh. Took a little less than 15 minutes, but there we go. So now the A record for our server has created a pointer record for our reverse lookup zone. So what if we wanted to actually go to the www in our client instead of typing in server 2019? To do that, what we would do is we would create a CNAME record. So in our forward lookup zone, under the primary lookup zone, we'd right click and click new alias CNAME record. And we want to type in www. And now what we would do is click browse, and we would find our server 2019, hit OK, click on our forward lookup zone, double click it, double click on kid, or whatever your last name is, and then we find our A record for server 2019 and hit OK. So now we have a CNAME www that is fully qualified to server 2019.kid.com. If we hit OK and we come back to our Windows 10 Pro computer, we'll close out of our Edge and open it back up, and we'll type in www.kid.com. And would you look at that? Now our web page works the way that it would work in any other instance. And that's DNS in a nutshell from the beginning. I believe next week we'll talk some more about DNS records, make some more records, and so on and so forth. But for now, this is DNS from a beginner's scenario. So we can go ahead and shut down our client, and we can close out of DNS on our server, and we can shut down our server. And that's it. That's it for the lab. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Again, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit the like button on the video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we will talk to you next time. Have a great day.